Okay, welcome, Mr. Berket. We will discuss today about the current situation of Ethiopia, and I'm so happy to have you with Cyber Power of Tigray.
Thank you, Ephraim, as Cyber Power of Tigray. I appreciate that the opportunity to speak on behalf of my people who are languishing in a very cruel, despotic two leaders from within Ethiopia and Eritrea.
Great. Okay. Let's do it. Great. So could you please tell us what's going on currently in Tigray? Real political situation. Is it really the force? I mean, the rule enforcement. Is it rule enforcement going on at this time? He said, the war is already over, but we have heard today there is a war going on. Actually, they have burned about 9 tanks by the Tigray government spoken person. So could you please tell us what's going on currently in Tigray? Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so hard to talk about the lies and deception that the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia is feeding to the public. Let me say this is actually the fourth week of the fighting between Tigray and Abiy's treasonous forces. And as you know, the cyber is full of misinformation and disinformation and the status of war in Tigray. And buying into Abiy's propaganda, even relatively reputable international outlets are reporting what the Abiy forces are talking about. You heard it, Makala, how many times he talked before even close to be there, that Makala is under his control. So Abiy accounts of lies is so much in all spheres. That's why he cut communication has been cut off. No outside reporters are allowed. Meanwhile, state media accounts are fanning the flames of war and predicting that the war will be in Tigray. Of course, Isaias of Eritrea is also doing Abiy's bidding into promotion of lies about the situation in Tigray and Eritrea. So, is it the end of is it near for the legitimate fight for the people of Tigray for self-rule and dignity, as Abiy prophet is doomed? Would like us to believe? No. The answer will be appears yes, if we believed the barrage of misinformation and falsehood coming from Abiy's camp. Fortunately, however, reliable information is coming from Tigray depicts the opposite of what Abiy accounts of the situation on the ground of Tigray. Tigray is not standing Tigray is standing on its ground against the others of those invading forces or invading swarm of locusts. Abiy and Isaiah soldiers are coming from direction, of course, from any direction, except Isaiah tells us to believe that he is not involved in this war. So, yeah, I mean, people of Tigray, this is a fight for the soul of Tigrayans and the soul of the nation. And I don't see the war is going to end as he wants us to believe. So, yes, our people are being hurt. As our leadership especially the young fighters, as telling us they're going to conduct their war on their own chosen time and place. And that's what going on exactly. This is their own call. And so far, they have made a very striving success in terms of capturing like Aksum and certain areas around that area, around Setit Humora. So, in a short, the fight is not over, but he's just disseminating with the help of his cyber dogs that victory is around the corner. And as you know, Ephraim, our people, when it comes to their self-dignity and for their democratic right, this is not something they are willing to bargain. That's what they lost 50,000 militaries, so that they can have an election, so that they can have their own representative to choose whoever they want to. So if that is the case, then the rule enforcement is not working in Tigray as he wants us to believe. If the rule enforcement should be, is the one that should be applied to him, because he is illegitimate prime minister of Ethiopia doing all these treasonous things. First, as you know, it expired on September, his mandate with a rubber stamp parliament, a doomed parliament. I say they don't even have the guts to question what's going on in Tigray. So, yeah, I saw yesterday briefly. It disgusts me when he was presenting himself to the parliament, and none of them were questioning him, and he was giving nicknames to those coward generals. Naturally, because they are not the one who is leading the fight. The fight is being led by Eritrean mercenary troops in every corner. So, could you imagine a high school graduate can lead that kind of a fight because he is a general? Look at it, the education level of those generals. Yeah, he can give them nicknames and all this, but they are cruel. They don't have heart. What they are doing is hurting people and destroying property of the people. Even, as a war trophy, some of the personal belongings, not to mention some of the cottage industries have been looted, burned. Some of the agricultural area in Rama that have been cut. I mean, it's just I don't know what kind of army will watch such kind of destruction of his own brother, Ethiopian, by another invading Eritrean army, and they are just watching. I am really, to be honest, I am ashamed myself to call an Ethiopian. Just never in the history of the world, you are inviting an invading army and your own people being invaded, looted, killed, and then the Ethiopian army. I don't know to name Ethiopian army. It's for me, I don't call it the Ethiopian Defense Forces. I call them Abiy Defense Forces because they are working for Abiy, not for the integrity of Ethiopia and Ethiopians. This has to be underlined. They are as much as the Eritrean invading army, and never in the history of the world that I know a former prime minister invites another country, not to mention, Eritrea, the Emirates, and the Somalias, and not to mention the very vicious, savage Amhara militias. Very vicious. They lack a sense of humanity and the dignity of a human being. Look, at Makhadra, what happened. I can narrate so many atrocities that is being committed. I mean, Makhadra is staged before it happened. Because that area, as you know, there are over close to 1 million Tigrayans who live. It is a scare tactic that they have conducted such a heinous crime, so that all the people who are living around that area, so that they can live and occupy the land. That's it. And this pre-planned stage is just used to terrorize people. For those people, if you are going to stay, it's going to be the same fate as those who perish savagely. You know that we Tigrayans never carry, the only thing we carry is a stick and a gun. I mean, we don't carry knives. It's not even part of our culture. And I don't see in our culture, in our belief, in our custom, in our tradition, two things are respected: wedding and corrupts. Dead person. So this really a cheap propaganda, for consumption of Ethiopia and the outside world. And God, thanks for some brave international news media follow through, especially for those who fled the atrocity and who survived to tell the story in Khartoum, in Sudan. They interview them. And then it has proved, like Amnesty organizations, they were duped. So this is what's going on in Tigray. But the fighting goes on. If he is sincere and genuine, why don't he open the gate so that independent investigators can look into the matter, who the guilty is, open the telecommunication, open to the outside world. But he's going to continue to hold grip on our Tigrayan people, and we're going to fight to the last person. If that is the way they want it, so be it. And I don't see any Tigrayans who will compromise when it comes to their land, their being. So this is now beyond TPLF leadership. This is a fight against Tigrayans. Yeah, they can take the cheap victory. They can put maps, whatever they want, on the land. Maybe that gives them a happy trigger for now. But the anger is going to come later, and they're going to regret. I can assure you that. So our forces are growing by day because we are fighting a just war. That's what everybody will get involved, and people will support this war, because the war is now about our being, about who we are. So that's what you see Tigrayans across the globe being galvanized, working day and night, fundraising, connecting to their representatives to give a clear picture of what's going on in Tigray. Despite the misinformation and stage dramas that's being done by those what I call cyber police or cyber paid mercenaries of the Amhara elites, and we should challenge them, and truth will come at the end, and the Tigrayan people will win. And after this atrocity, I don't see any Tigrayan wants to be part of this, what do you call, greater of Ethiopia. This is my personal, if that decision has to be made. But for now, as a Tigrayan myself, let alone to be part of that land, I don't want to even call the name Ethiopia, because it is a very painful for Tigrayans throughout the history, from Minilik all the way to Haile Selassie. Always, whenever something flares, they have to ask foreign invaders to help them quashing internal problems. And that has been the tendency. And Tigray has been relied on her sons and daughters, on herself. And this time, we're going to continue the tradition we inherited from our ancestors just to protect our land.
Right. So, as you said, Abiy Ahmed is supposed to be open to the world. Currently, there are people being blocked not to cross the borders to go to the Sudan to get because they don't have no trust on the government, and they've been killed, they've been beaten up, and they've been cut in their face, they've been cut in their hands, and pregnant women have been given birth on the nowhere on the place around in between Sudan and Tigray. But he said that he agreed with humanitarian access for places only it's been controlled by PP soldiers. Do you think this is right, or what do you think about the transfer for the international communities and Human Rights Watch about this agreement?
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that he wants to wish because he thought that he controlled, the news and the propaganda. But Abiy and Isaias are hoping that the world will know about the war in Tigray because they have the monopoly of all information. Sooner or later, though, the world will know about the tremendous cost of the war in terms of lives and resources. Such Abiy propaganda, which is designed to mislead foreign government and the Ethiopian people, will not last since truth will come out at the end, as it did in many of other prior conflicts. When truth is told, people will wake up to the news that thousand innocent Amhara peasants who are promised land that they know does not belong to them perished or wounded mercilessly. The same can be said about the members of the regular army who knowingly are out to kill their fellow countrymen, Tigray, by allying themselves with our sworn enemy, Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea. So, yeah, we have to prove that he doesn't control the information, the propaganda campaign. That's what cyber power is using to alert other bystander Ethiopians or foreigners. There is no way we are here to mislead. We are here to tell the predicament of our people. We are saying, let it be open. Let outsiders come and see. Let people see what's happening in Tigray, in those temporary occupied area. I call it temporary because this is a fight. This is a war. They are coming in all directions like swarm. So a military decision has to be made. Actually, it is a very genius and smart way to withdraw from Mekelle because he was looking an excuse to bomb Mekelle. As he said, I'm going to go bomb you here if you are going to stay in Mekelle, if you're going to do it. This is the first leader who treated his own people. He wants to bomb them. I mean, I lived through Derg era. I lived through Haile Selassie imperial era. I thought Derg was the most cruel and vicious government we have until I see this little man. I call him little man because he doesn't have a regard for people except for his own power. So, yeah, he will try to do anything, but case in point, look at what the Europeans did. The Europeans are going to cut some of the funds, and also they're going to stop some of the, officials, travel visas and so on. And this is only the beginning. Here in the United States also, we have to do some attempt. I mean, look what's happening tomorrow. We have a hearing. There are two Ethiopians, name one of them is Masarat and the other, forget her name. They work for Karan Bass, which is a foreign chairwoman. So any hearing that we have to provide on our side was rejected. So to that extent, they are corrupting even, the process here. I thought, the Congress should be fair for all, so that we can provide, on our side what is taking place in Tigray. But even here to the highest level is trying to corrupt those officials and mislead. Just, it's quite amazing. They are using every salvo they can get. So that's what we've been talking, you and me, Ephraim. We have to organize. We have to write to the senators, to Congress, just not to misinform, but to tell them the real predicament of our people, that they are suffering. Some of them, could you imagine electric being cut, telecommunication cut, and also being told not to get out of your house for a month? So what he's trying to do is he want to kill them by starvation. He want to strike them by starvation. That's all his tactic, so that people will give up. The more cruelty he shows up, the more resistance he gets. So, yeah, he's not going to be successful. All his attempted and the lies, it's going to cut him. So, I don't think so. Donor organization and humanitarian organization are going to buy to his stupid tricks. As you know, Makala Aider Hospital needs so much antibiotics and any medical equipment that needed for patients. Not to mention, lack of the basic treatment for those people who are elderly. They are running out of supplies. So, we have to put so much pressure, because they're going to use every avenue to suppress our voice. And that should be a good lesson for tomorrow. So tomorrow hearing, we'll not be able to present our story, but we have to push for another time to have our own rebut.
Right. Well, you mentioned about the cowardice generals. You call them cowardice generals, which is in the past, in Meldes's administration, we have seen the gold medallias winners of the development, whoever is working on the developmental side, not on the military or Ministry of Defense side. It doesn't mean that Ministry of Defense did not do anything. They've been doing a lot of amazing job in a different places, even inside the country and outside the country as a peacekeepers. But we haven't heard that kind of the government. Meldes now was focusing on the development of the country. So what kind of achievement they have done? We have seen in Tigray, people are displaced, people are being killed. And the prime minister said all the targets has been signed by him, but all the targets were in Mekelle University, in church, in Adigrat city of civilians. We have seen them, all the targets are on civilians, and even bombarding by those tanks and other big weapons, those led by those generals. Do you think this is supposed to be a good way of calling them a lot of name, Nobro or Satana or that kind of stuff? Where is this country going?
Well, let me say this before answering your question. Uh, those who conventionally uh, convince themselves that the war is uh, between Ethiopia and some elements in the TPLF should understand now that the war is a war between people of Tigray and unitary forces and Eritreans. Mainly, I have to stress that Amharas, elitists who are salivating naively, I will say that the end of the TPLF will mark the end of the constitution, which guarantees the right of all nations in Ethiopia and self-determination. However, this is just a dream. It's not only the people of Tigray who want self-rule. Almost all nations, with the exception of the Amhara, want a junior federal regiment. Therefore, even a win in Tigray, which I indicated above is rather impossible, will not translate into political system that Abiy and his foolish allies are hoping for. So, on these basic promises, those generals and their background, as you know, some of them were captured twice during the Derg era, and they were educated, and genuinely they put them into action in case if they can help their own nationalities. Some of them, like one of the generals who is now boosting that Bacha, he was in Nazareth. He was a horse rider, what do you call carrossa, before he enlisted himself into the army. And then in the army, he was captured at Eritrea and brought to TPLF. And this is a guy who is now talking about trash about the people of Tigray. And I, from just a common soldier to a general, he has been enlisted, and such kind of generals, I don't really buy, can lead a successful war against a veteran, hard core of our revolutionary forces or special forces is just a child play. I have to be honest. They are not even one of the generals is not even equivalent to one of the special forces of a Tigray listed soldier. It's not that I'm trying to undermine their ability, but that's what it is. Give me those generals has been leading all the wars that we know at the front was led by Eritreans. All their mechanized brigade. Only 2 divisions are left in Eritrea. All mechanized in every direction are in Ethiopia. It's the same thing. All his mechanized are in Tigray. All of them are perished. They have only 2 left in Addis. So tell me, those are the generals. They took to victory. Wave after wave of lives has been disseminated. We feel sorry. I mean, this war, we don't want it. They forced it upon us. So once the Ethiopian people know the true story, those generals that has been serving as a Puru dog for this treacherous dictator, I think the Ethiopian people will take action. What you have seen in Libya and in Iraq against their own oppressors. and that is not going to be too long, you know. So it just what do you call in Amharic they call it mamokashet, just like trying to tell a child I love you and you such and such, and I don't know. I mean, he just praised them to that extent. He didn't even give them the dignity that they deserve as an army, calling them like nicknames and so on. Probably it boosts their moral, their ego, but in reality, they are cowards. Because all the reports that we are hearing is they've been killing a lot of innocent people. If that is not true, why don't he open it for investigation? I mean, look, we are just asking, open it. Let the facts be fact. But they don't want to do that. So they're going to buy time until witnesses being killed, until evidences are hid. It needs time. Maybe I will not be surprised, as I shared before. All those dead soldiers, he's going to put them in a one grave, in a mass grave, and then he's going to say, "Look what the PLF did. These are people." It doesn't surprise me at all. It's already, you have seen it in Maikadra. It is a staged drama. Look at it, how the international organization was so quick to jump and to blame TPLF leaders. So, yeah, I mean, there is no stone turned. There is no words that's not spoken to blame all the ills that's happened. Really, I heard his speech yesterday because I cannot stomach personally what he was talking about, because all his talk, if you follow through, it's lies after lies, and then at the end it contradicts its lies. Look at it. He was talking about the rockets. He said the rockets are already, being turned to stone and all those things. And then finally he says, well, they have rockets that can go as far as 300 kilometers. And then they have in Adwa short-range missiles and whatnot. So, and what really upsets me is the rubber stamp parliament. He talked about 3 hours and so on. Nobody wants to question what's going on. We want to hear, from the field. Why don't these generals testify? Why don't the Eritreans who are leading the war effort don't testify? So yeah, you can use all the media you have. You can use all the propaganda. At the end, truth is going to come out. Once the truth come out and emerges, the reaction of the Ethiopian people will be different. But I see some people who are in some areas chatting, and because Mekelle was occupied by these invading forces, and there was a jubilance and happiness and cheer on the streets of Addis and other areas. Those are paid mercenaries. I don't think so. It will reflect the majority of the Ethiopian people. Those are vagabonds or very resentful to Tigrayans. And I hope the Ethiopian people will have the wisdom to evaluate in the light of these difficulties. And we have survived, and we're going to continue to survive as a people. Always we rely on our resources and on our strengths. So Tigrayans around the world, we have to come together no matter what. We have to work closely and do our own part. We can do fundraising. We can do advocacy. We can do so many things to help our own people. By simply being traumatized by the war is not going to help our people. What it helps is all this atrocity being committed to our people should galvanized, should make us to work more, to do more for our people. As we talk, I talk clearly right now, people are fighting with the invading armies. They didn't give him rest. As you heard it in many, they are just within chosen time. They are cutting him off from supplies. They are going to continue to do best what they do best. And I hope this misery is going to come soon. And I believe on on Tigrayan special forces, militias, to fight with the result against those invading armies. And we are always behind you. Keep fighting. Keep fighting.
Great. As you said, I don't think we have any Tigrayan representative in that parliament. Maybe most of them are withdrawn. They don't really consider it as a that parliament does not representative. Not only the Tigray, the people of Tigray, but also most of the Ethiopian people, because we have seen it, a lot of damages, unlawful doing by the government, but none of them has been trying to advocate the situation. None of them they have no willingness, and they have no any. I don't think they represent for Ethiopian people. For instance, Abiy Ahmed, he said that there are more than 114 political unrest in Ethiopia, but all those have been created by Tigrayan soldiers in command in Sidama and Walaita, in Oromo place. But and he said that he found a lot of assassinating guns was purchased from Israel. I think people are saying that he probably is ready to do assassination. He's do a lot of stuff, and he's trying to displace his own mismanagement of the country to Tigray. Is it what do you think about this statement that he explained at the parliament a couple days ago, maybe yesterday?
It is insane. So I mean, he been counting those instead of trying to stop. He chose to fight. He chose to record those events. What is taking place? 114 around clashes since he became in power, and that's really very depressing. So he found out that Tigray is not part of it. And then he was wondering why, because Tigrayans are the one who is igniting those. Is a very foolish and stupid attempt even to portray that kind of sentiment. Tigray was peaceful because the people choose to be peaceful and a good administration. That's it. University will continue. People was continue their normal lives, even though the provocation for 2 years roadblock, economic blockage has been in place against the grand people. This was a provocation, an act of war. When you block a member of, nationalities, one nation, one community, you are waging a war. If really considers that we are part of Ethiopia and has the federal forces, you could have used them to open the road. This is a guy who could not even open a road, trying to tell us that Tigray is the one who is provoking all those clashes around Ethiopia is sheer stupidity. He could have sent his troops and tried to stop that misery and suffering instead of counting every clashes that appear under his rule, under his nose. And really, it shows how a weak leader he was, and how the TPLF leadership was a strong leader who worked and managed. And that's what one of the testament, with all the difficulties they have, but when it comes to a self-rule, to elect your officials, they have done it under a very tremendous circumstance. 2.7 million people under such a circumstance to conduct election is something that should not be easily looked at. So, yes, it was very unfortunate that he chose to count all those clashes, but not to take action. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, Ephraim. Blame the victim. He has to say something instead of, I was weak. I was not able to do it, to stop those bloodsheds under my. Any responsible government will say, it is, I am responsible for that. But this guy, he never take any responsibility for his actions. That has been all his life. I mean, when he was in INSA, he hasn't done anything. But rumors are coming. He was the one who was doing for those allegedly now his partners blocking and intercepting radio calls and spying and all those things. He's been swearing he never hurt any Ethiopian. I mean, Mengistu said he has never even killed a person, even not a person, even an insect. That's what he said. And he just, if you say if you remember what Mengistu says, and this guy, if you put, left and right, he just equates the same word. Mm-hmm. The same word. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a very weak. He could not lead. That's what it tells me. Only he talks. And his utter talks and ignorance, it contradicts. You cannot start his speech without at the end contradicting what he said earlier times. So, yeah, I mean, it is a very unfortunate that the Ethiopian people could not see his cunning, what you call this straight talk. It's very nice on straight talk. Because the more he talks, he thinks that he can be unintelligent. I mean, I can go on about this guy. You remember, within the first month, he plagiarized speech from Kissinger, word by word. He was reading. So, and the first embarrassment, as an Ethiopian head of state, plagiarized, that many people seem to forget about it now. Those people who are echoing that how intelligent and smart he is. He's a con man. That's what I have to say. He's a con man, academically weak, regardless of, what he has, whether it's PhD, MBA. And I have never seen, within 10 years from 7th grade, you go all the way to PhD. And I don't know. I mean, I just never heard. There was a story when I used to, in a kindergarten, first, second year, called Sunzuro. And this guy who was born on Monday and he went to Tuesday to get some woodies for his mom for cooking. And on the third day, he did that kind of unbelievable stories, to feel you have as a child. So, yeah, I mean, even if it is, if it is not true, look at what he does. Look at a guy who holds a PhD, such a white lie, such manipulation, such a, plagiarize. And I want to see what he wrote that I couldn't find myself. I tried to do some research. So, I don't want to make it personal. because I don't know him, but I can judge him what he does, because he is a leader of the Ethiopian people, former Ethiopian people, and he should not be immune from any criticism, because once you are in a political life, a lot of garbage is going to come out behind you, and he has many more about his upbringing, about his education, about his role. Many times is very exaggerated. Look at it, where we are now. So yeah, I mean, it just he wants Ethiopia to be in a flame, in an area of conflict. Even the areas that we live, that we cherish peace, for him was not good enough because we didn't fight with all our neighbors. That's what he wants. Tigray has to be also embroiled in this hatred and dispute with their neighbors or surrounding areas, as we don't have enough with these vicious Amhara militias who are trying to say they want to capture Tigray in their one hand or something to that nature. And we just tolerate enough. I can go on. Look at what happened in Gondar. They are the one who started this hate and ethnic cleansing. Had we taken action back then, probably we wouldn't be here. Quite honestly, because sometimes passion being considered for weak people as a weak. So you're trying to see, by doing this, what I am going to lose, what I am gain. But those are savages. They don't care what they lose, because they are telling us we are 35 million, they are 65 million. If 10 people died from one, that kind of mental and attitude makes me sick to my stomach, even, as we speak, to contemplate it. So, yeah, it is a very unfortunate circumstance that we are living in, and I hope at the end will prevail. And I never doubt that we're going to be prevail, despite the hardship, the suffering that is brought upon us by these invading forces, and especially, the Isaias Afwerki war drum and foot soldiers killing and vandalizing some of the Tigrayan assets that we are proud of, that we build through our hard earning, like TDA and other generous Tigrayans from the world is being disseminated. We're going to rebuild them.
Yes.
Once our peace and tranquility comes to our region.
One thing that I need to mention about the social media and the trolls and bots are, instead of standing with the truth behind the people of Tigray and behind the people of Ethiopia, they are Isat and other social medias bloggers are not really telling exactly what's going on in the people of Tigray. As you said earlier, none of those TPLF leaders has been captured yet. But people are displacing and dying. But do you think all those medias are telling us? Why are they going behind the wrongdoing instead of standing on the side of the people?
Well, this is a question that everybody is asking. How come there is not even a single voice condemning the people of Tigray are going through? That's what everybody is asking. And for all purpose, Tigray has been isolated from the world. There are no phone lines, as you know, no internet service, no electricity, and no access to humanitarian aid. Does anybody in his right mind think this is a law enforcement operation? I mean, give me a break. The world has started to take a note that this is a collective punishment which is a war crime under international humanitarian law. So I will say, watch out. Those criminals are not going to escape justice. It's just only a matter of time. So, yeah, I mean, I hate to say this. Ethiopian people right now, majority, they feed on misinformation, what the government says or does. So their ability to comprehend truth and lies is very disappointing.
Yeah.
But that's what we need, our voice, and we have found our voice in cyber and in many of the Tigrayan websites and many of the um, talk shows, many of the advocacies that we have to put through. They try to define us the way they want us to be defined. But we have the ability and know-how to define who we are, to speak about our pain, our agony, about the war, called war enforcement, what we call a collective punishment against the Tigrayans. So,
Wait. Sorry. I thought
yeah,
you
go ahead.
finished.
Yeah, it's just a mind-boggling for any ordinary person who thinks this is a just war. We didn't go anywhere. We are in our land. We are in our area. Just like any nation, when invader comes, they defend. But here, what makes it unique is the regime who's supposed to rule Ethiopia is using all naval forces to invade one of the member of this constitution. Never in the history. I mean, they are individuals who betray or change their allegiance to another foreign country. But this is as a leader who conspires. And if there is law and order in Ethiopia, this person should have been in prison for treason. Because the Ethiopian constitution, it states abiding and helping with the foreign invaders is a treason. And people, they don't want to talk about it. Especially, the Amhara elites that really very disappointing that it went to that kind of low level. Most of us, we grow up in unity of Ethiopia, and most of us been in many organizations for the well-being of Ethiopia. And I was a pan-Ethiopianist for a long time until I see this injustice. Could you imagine what kind of a Tigrayan person or individual will see Ethiopia after this?
Yeah.
I doubt. So, I mean, this is really, as he put it, a red line, not only for himself, it's a red line for Tigrayans that we have to rethink. What is next? This
Right.
just keeps happening. And we cannot afford, to build and what we built being destroyed and also start all over again. Just like a chess game. This chess game has to, suffice to say, should be stopped. And this is the time, and this is the movement. And we cannot see a better time because it was initiated by those invading forces. I can tell you this, I will be certain that I know that Ethiopia, if it exists more than 6 months.
Right. Um, Well, one thing that he mentioned in Parliament, uh, Mr. C.U. Mesfin was the IGAD chairman of the IGAD. And Meles, you know Meles Zenawi, what he have done for the world, not only for Ethiopia, but for the entire world. He was underestimating those leaders. He said that because of those leaders, our neighboring country are not happy because we are dividing them. This current situation has been created by TPLF leaders, and those neighboring countries are complaining because our problem is influencing the neighboring country. So he said that he's trying to clear all these problems in the IGAD, in the neighboring countries. And I mean, does he have a knowledge and moral to criticize the former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi and Siyum Mesfin?
He
And do you
doesn't.
think those people are done wrong in Africa and the world? What do they have done exactly? Can you remind us what they have done in the climate change, in the peacekeeping, in the country, the development of the country, Ethiopian by itself, in the last 3 years and before that, the last 27 years? What was the Ethiopian current economical and political situation? And what happened during Meles administration? And what happened during Abiy administration? Does he really has a power and a knowledge to criticize those leaders at all?
Well, I mean, he doesn't have any moral ground to fit himself to those leaders, to say the least. But there is a, if you want to compare yourself as a little man, so you have to pick up a well-respected person and try to equate yourself with such. And this is all the trick. If he picks on me, on you, and nobody give us attention, but he has to pick up, well-respected leaders who has done so much in terms of international relation. Look, as a peacekeeping, the last 27 years, what they did in Somalia, what they did in many parts of, Africa, in West Africa, in many areas that the Ethiopian politicians, especially IGAD. Look at it, IGAD, how strong and committed the organization was. Now, because the dictator in Eritrea doesn't like IGAD, IGAD is now weak, completely just an organization that is standing on one feet. Because for the same reason that I talk, Isaias is not doesn't have any interest. He always despise Africans, and has never been participating in such. So trying to compare himself with Meles and with you, it just I don't even have to compare. But as I said, always weak people they try to pick up someone bigger than them, and they try to you know criticize them that they are more superior than them. And this is a very classical, childish play. But look at it, what happened. The good things, we can go on and on another hour. What has been achieved through uh, Prime Minister Males administration in the last 20 plus years that the world has noticed that Ethiopia has been embarking on the road to recovery from a failed state. When Derg left, there was no money, there was nothing. They started from scratch and to build a very robust economy. The last 20 plus years, a growth, economic growth of 2 digits, and not to mention the infrastructure, roads and buildings and production and investment. so on. I mean, this is, I'm not talking about cheap propaganda. This is something that has been proved and recorded well by MF, by International Monetary Fund and other well-respected institutions. Well, I think it's much better to talk what happened after he became as a prime minister, Ethiopia. That's the one that we should talk about it. The achievement of those two leaders, especially the achievement of Mallas in terms of stability and the economy. Volume speaks. It's records, but I think the focus should be what happened after he took control of the prime minister. The Ethiopian economy was going down to the hill in a free fall, and by his own admission, by his own record, I didn't record it. He said there were 114 records of clashes and humanitarian disasters across Ethiopia, except Tigray. One, the country was infrastructure was in ruins, burned, and that can be also under the administration of Haile Mariam Desalegn. All those problems, all those demonstration came under those two losers, not under Mallas. I can say in certainty there was one in the election, a big problem and instability during Mallas's prime minister time. Just one time during that election, if you remember. But ever since, those problems were under Haile Mariam Desalegn that he could not control and under, Abiy Ahmed. And I don't know why they are blaming, when we had such a stable and peaceful time during a prime minister of Mallas. So, that's what I said. I don't want to do so much into it because all the problems happen under the watch of the two prime ministers, Haile Mariam Desalegn and Abiy. That's fact. All those instability in Amhara, Oromo, Somalia displacement. I can go on and on. Those are facts. But we have, coward leadership who doesn't take responsibility. Any responsible government will say, look, we didn't take the appropriate action. We didn't take the appropriate action in time. So we will do better. We'll try to, stop any conflict further that disintegrates Ethiopia. But this is a prime minister sitting in his Oval Office, trying to count how many clashes. If there is no clash, then he will register, wow, how come there is no clash in Tigray in all those areas? How come this is? So those clashes has not a chess game. It is real human loss, economic loss, displacement. So, this is a guy. I mean, what can I say? He doesn't take responsibility. He has to blame something. Believe me, if something happens now, those generals who are hyping them, tomorrow, mark my word, he's going to say, look, I am not the one. Those are the ones who are leading the war. They should be responsible for it. So whenever there is a good success, he takes credit. Whenever there is bad thing, he blames to others. So just answer your question. I don't want to compare him with those outstanding leader and a smart leader. But his work speaks volume. Why do you have to compare yourself? Look at it, where we are now. Just look at it. Any ordinary person with the right mind can see what the future of Ethiopia awaits. Did Mallas left Ethiopia in that kind of condition? Did Sayyum Masfin left the foreign mission of Ethiopia in that kind of circumstance? So Really, the answer is simple. We have seen what this morbid prime minister, former prime minister of Ethiopia, will do, and what he has done is enough. But I don't see Ethiopia as we know. So, I mean, comparing apple and oranges, that's what I don't want to even waste time, to put in the same position because he occupies the prime minister office, that he has the authority to compare himself with the previous administration is just laughable.
Great. Mr. Bereket, appreciate it. You are an
Thank
amazing person, and thank you so much for being with Cyber Power of Tigray. At the end, maybe if you do have anything that we didn't mention, you wanted to say for Defense Force of Tigray, for the people of Tigray, for other alliance of Tigray, Ethiopian people, and other Eritrean diasporas, Tigray diasporas. At the end, I'll give you some few minutes before we ended up our conversation. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ephraim, for giving me the chance to share my thoughts to Tagaru and friends of Tagaru across the globe, across the world, be it in North America, Australia, Europe. We are living in a very difficult time. Our Tigray needs us. We have to do everything we can humanly to be a voice for the voiceless of our people who are languishing under this brutal prisoners regime. We have a lot of work to do simply by watching TV, social media. Our temperature going up and down, it doesn't really help us. This is a fight that came to us, fight that we don't want, a fight that was imposed on us, on our people. Then, like we have done previous times, or like our ancestors, Tigray has been a burial ground for invaders, and there should not be this an exception. Yes, they can enter, but they will not have time to tell their stories to where they come. So, my message is Kagaru around the world, unite, organize, work closely with friends, neighbors, to speak, to highlight the dilemma that we are forced under this illegitimate prime minister with a morbid Eritrean leader who wants a distraction to Tigray to be oblivious. So I hope Eritreans as well can open your mind what's happening in Tigray. This is ethnic cleansing. What's happening now in our area, in our borders, it's going to happen to anybody. So this is a just cause for our humanity, for our survival. We need each other. We have to fight oppression, injustice, dictatorship. Tigray تعود. يغني كبري هابلي أتم تجارو فقادو الشنطرة بقرن بتصحين بتميتن بسماتن منتان حزبي تግራይ ምእንታን ዓድኹም ዝትጋደሉ ዘለኹም ክብርን ሞገስን ይብፅሐኹም ኣንቱም እንተ ትግራይ ነዚ ቅዱስ ዕላማ ፀላኢ ንምንብርኻኽ ጎረሮ ንጎረሮ እናተሓነቅኩም ብቆዱ ሽንጥሮ ዘለኹም ደቅና ኣሕዋትና ጽንዓት ይሃብኩም ጽንዓት ኢኹም ንሕና እውን ዝተኻለና ኣብ ጎንኹም ኮይንና እቲ ዝግበር ነገራት ካብ ምግባር ልድሓር ይንብልን ዓወትና ዓወትኩም እዩ ስቃይኩም ስቃይና እዩ ምንም እኳ ኣብ ዝተፈላለየ ቦታ ርሒቕና ተሃለና ብመንፈስ ካባኻትም ሓንቲ መዓልቲ ተፈሊና ኣይንፈልጥን ስለዚ በርትዑ መጨረሻ ተዓዋቶ ኢና መስመርና ቁኑዕ ስለ ዝኾነ ዓዋት ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ይغنيلي.
Thank you so much, Mr. Berket, again. Cyber Power of Tigray, we will have more good speakers like Mr. Berket Kiros next time, and we will have more discussion about the current situation of Tigray in Ethiopia. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.